Good afternoon. Welcome to Shiloh Temple International Ministries, and I'm the pastor here, Bishop Richard Howell. I'm wearing a Howard cap. My granddaughter just picked her up at the airport yesterday. I'm a pretty proud grandfather right now, so please forgive me for wearing this cap today. We're certainly grateful to have this place open to our Mayor Jacob Frey, and the police department to come and speak to us as a community and to the press. This is our city, it's our community. We welcome each and every one of you who have come today to partake in listening and understanding what the vision is for this great city. I'm honored to be here today, and I'm also honored to congratulate Mayor Frey on his re-election. At this time, it's my pleasure to present to you our mayor, the Honorable Jacob Frey, everybody.
Huge thank you to Bishop Howell, who has been so incessantly and consistently committed to the North Side here and to our entire city. I greatly appreciate your partnership, Bishop, and to Shiloh Temple as well. It's certainly good to be back here. So as a community, Minneapolis has endured more trauma, specifically here on the North Side in these last couple of years than we have in quite some time, and in fact, perhaps many generations. The people who we represent, they are crying out loudly. They're asking for help. They want their kids to be safe. They want to be able to go to work without the risk of seeing or experiencing a carjacking. They want to be able to feel safe in their community, safe on the streets, and safe having their kid go outside to recreate. The people that we represent need to be noticed, and it's up to us right now to come forward, not just with words, but with clear actions. And so you'll notice that Deputy Chief Huffman and I have brought together inspectors from the precincts throughout our city, and we're going to be able to provide a rundown to the general public on what is being done, and then ultimately the direction that we're moving going forward. So there's going to be three core areas that we are going to discuss today. The first is MPD will be discussing what has been done and what they are doing to curb some of the violent crime that we are experiencing, the carjackings, the home invasions, what they are doing in order to hold perpetrators accountable, one, and two, what they are doing in order to divert oftentimes youth from the system where it is appropriate. Second, we want to give an overview of the support that we require, the mutual aid requests that have been made, and the additional assistance that will be necessary, both in terms of investigations as well as enforcement as we move forward. And then finally, we want to give an overarching rundown as to what we are doing in order to rebuild our department, to make sure that we have staffing levels that are pushed back up again. As you all know, we've experienced quite a bit of attrition over these last couple of years, and it's on all of us to get the right community-oriented officers into the department and to retain the excellent officers that we have to make sure that they are able to do their jobs that they are charged with of keeping people safe and protecting and serving in our communities. So let's take each one of these pieces in turn. First, the MPD has been working with community partners to step up our enforcement of for the spike in crime that we have been seeing in recent months and the last couple of years. And across the country, we have in fact seen a jump in violent crime and specifically carjackings. And so I don't think it makes anybody feel any better to know that it is happening in cities throughout the country, but it is in fact happening in cities throughout the country. And I want to give you a few statistics to note just how serious this is. In Minneapolis, we have gone from 388 incidents in 2020, which, by the way, was high, up to 610 through this year, with the highest spike in the 3rd precinct of Minneapolis. Robberies have jumped from 1,867 in 2020 to 2,182. Gunshot wounds have jumped citywide from 19.5%, with a near majority occurring here in the 4th precinct. So we've been working alongside a number of community partners to make sure that we have a comprehensive approach to how our law enforcement functions. And at the same time, we are seeing a tragic trend that has been unfolding, especially among Minneapolis's youngest residents. 75% of the arrests that have occurred are, in fact, recidivism. So arrests specifically for the robbery arrest, which, by the way, includes carjackings, 75% of them are recidivist in nature. To put that a different way, in that same frame, 39 juveniles have 3 or more arrests. That's 39 individuals with 3 or more arrests. And as D.C. Huffman has said, we need to shift from a political conversation to a pragmatic one. We need to stop the rhetoric and move forward with the action steps as to how we move forward. We need to make sure that young people have safe places to recreate, that they have things to do coming out of a global pandemic, that they're getting back to operating and functioning in a society where they feel comfortable and safe. And simultaneously, we need to protect both them and the city from some of the violent acts that have been perpetrated over the last several months. This has got to be a comprehensive and multifaceted approach, and nobody here is suggesting that we're just going to arrest our way out of this problem. But if we fail to couple compassion with accountability, and that goes from the courts to the prosecutors to police to politicians, we are resigning ourselves to failed outcomes. Second, we are having to do more with less, and that's meant that we are relying on partnering with a number of different jurisdictions in a mutual aid capacity, and we'll be able to address what those mutual aid requests have looked like, and in fact, some of them are ongoing. Full speed ahead with recruiting and building back our department. As has been mentioned, we have lost around 1/3 of our department to attrition over these last couple of years. Now we must be doing everything we possibly can to build back right. We need to be incentivizing the best possible officers that are community-oriented, that are procedural justice-minded, that want to protect and serve to enter this department. We need to be retaining and attracting the best and the brightest within to the Minneapolis Police Department, and I will say it bluntly. And this is something that I think mayors and chiefs around the country are recognizing, is that police officers need to get paid more and fired more. They need to get paid more so that we are, in fact, incentivizing the best possible talent to come to our police department and stay here. We want people that want to be the change in the Minneapolis Police Department to sign up, and I will, in fact, take this opportunity to say that if you want to be the change in your community, if you want to protect and serve, if you want to have deep-seated relationships in Minneapolis that allow you to stop some of these violent acts before they start and make sure that people in your community, in our community, feel safe, joining the Minneapolis Police Department is a great step. We also need to make sure that we recognize that this work is going to take all of us. It's going to take everything in our power right now to keep Minneapolis residents safe, and this is going to take a collective effort. So those are some of the 3 overarching pieces that we want to be focusing on right now. With that, I will turn it over to our Deputy Chief Huffman to get into a little bit more of the specifics. And here's how we're going to work this. So after we're done with a couple of short presentations here, we're going to open it up first to questions from community members, and then shift right into questions from the press to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible about all the work that is unfolding. Thank you so much. And with that, Deputy Chief Huffman.
Thank you to Mayor Frey. Thank you to Bishop Howell and to Shiloh Temple for allowing us to use their beautiful space today. And thank you to all of you for taking the time to come. I really appreciate it. Caring for our community is at the core of how I approach our work, and will continue to be at the center of this department as we move forward together. Part of that care is recognizing the fear and harm caused by the increases in violent crime. Gun violence continues to disproportionately affect our most diverse neighborhoods. We've seen the tragic outcomes this year. Minneapolis families are mourning the loss of loved ones, mourning the loss of children who will not be gathering for holiday celebrations this year. At the same time, we've seen a dramatic increase in robbery crimes, particularly the carjacking incidents, which are so deeply unsettling in every corner of the city and indeed throughout the metro area. One significant thread running through our violent crime patterns, particularly the carjacking cases, is the prevalence of young people who are repeatedly involved in these crimes. As Mayor Frey mentioned, in the past 2 years, 39 young people under the age of 18 have been arrested 3 or more times for a robbery, and that includes carjackings. In fact, 29 people under the age of 18 have been arrested 5 or more times, and there are a few who've accumulated even more arrests than that. These young people are placing themselves at great risk of being hurt, and they're hurting others. These young people who are so at risk are our children, the future of our city, and we collectively need to do right by them and their families through just, community-oriented responses to what we see happening. And those who are being harmed are also our families, our neighbors, our friends, our employees, hard-working people in the city of Minneapolis, people who make this city work. As the mayor mentioned, accountability and compassion aren't mutually exclusive. They go hand in hand. And today, community is calling on all of us who have a hand in making this city safer to account for how we are meaningfully intervening to prevent young people from involvement in this high-risk, harmful behavior. Police, prosecutors, judges, probation, community-based organizations, schools, churches, families. To deliver results to our community, we must work together. Today, we've brought together Minneapolis Police Department commanders and inspectors, the folks who supervise investigations and our patrol response throughout the city. They can answer questions and talk about the specific work that's being done in our investigations units in our precincts throughout the city. That includes working with communities to provide crime prevention information and safety tips, deterring crime with the presence of officers, particularly in crime hotspots, working to apprehend offenders, responding to 911 calls to provide assistance to victims and to do those preliminary investigations that are so critical for the progress of casework, collecting and processing evidence to identify suspects. Many times it doesn't get talked about, but I can't emphasize enough the critical work that our professional, non-sworn staff do in the Minneapolis Police Department. We could not do the work that we do without their support, and the work of the Crime Lab is particularly key in investigating these violent crime cases. Our investigators, of course, are the ones who are shepherding this work through, doing the hard work of putting all of the pieces of the puzzle together and presenting those cases to the prosecutors for the appropriate charging decisions. And then we work together with our criminal justice partners and community throughout the course of those cases. We have an extraordinary workforce in the Minneapolis Police Department, and they are showing up to serve this community every single day, trying to perfect the art of doing more with much, much less. To the inspectors and commanders who joined us today, I thank you, and I thank all of the men and women from all of our commands who show up every day for the people in the city of Minneapolis. And with that, we're certainly happy to take specific questions.
We'll get to the questions in just 1 second. I want to first invite up Inspector Charlie Adams, who's doing some really incredible work here over in the 4th Precinct, and I also want to give a huge congratulations as his daughter, Brittany, will be one of the first in this recruiting class, which is actually graduating tonight to get sworn in. Big congratulations to Inspector Charlie Adams, and I'd like to invite him.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to repeat what the mayor said, but I'll let you know we've had a unique situation over last summer, and we had, with our staffing was low, we had several hot spots that I really could not cover with my officers because they were busy hitting, responding to 911 calls. So Reverend McAfee called me up during the summer because he knew we were having problems with them hot spots, and him and other black ministers and some other churches, we came up with the 21 days of peace. We put them on our hot spots. We had them there, and there was a significant reduction of crime in those areas. Particular 36 and Penn, 35th and Lindell and Broadway, which still is a monster there. We're still having issues there. We had Bishop Powell had one of his members who were part of our team. She actually took a bullet, and I believe in her hip, but she's fine now. But it shows you how community stepped up for us in North Minneapolis, and I want to thank them for being there and doing that for us. We've also been doing enforcement details with Commander Case people and Inspector Peterson's CERT team and my CERT team, and we've been very active all summer. We've taken a lot of guns off. We've made a lot of arrests. Ms. Crockett can tell you we hit Broadway and Lindell one day, and I like to call it was an airstrike. We went in there. I think we arrested multiple people. We a lot of guns, and I can remember my text messaging from everybody in the community. Yep, you said you guys were going to do it, and you did it. We'll continue those enforcement details. Currently, my CERT team, along with the other CERT teams, are out there trying to locate some of these young folks who are doing carjacking. I know they made an arrest earlier today. We've actually, before I got in, we recovered 2 other stolen vehicles. So our team and the men and women of the 4th Precinct and MPD are out there continuing to do their enforcement and make sure we have a safe city to live in. With that, like I said, I applaud my community partners, and Ms. Crockett, I appreciate your support. Thank you. And that's the way we do it in North Minneapolis. Community is what drives us, and the men and women of the 4th Precinct appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, Inspector and Deputy Chief, for your words and your commitment. And with that, we'll open it up to some questions from community, followed by some questions from the media. Yes.
I hear you say that some of the juveniles have been arrested 3 times or more, and some have been arrested 5 times or more. And you talk about intervention and solutions. And I also sit on the Hennepin County Community Corrections Advisory, and I have asked repeatedly, why is it when you know who these people are, we can't get our hands on them and do something to intervene, prevent, redirect them so that they don't keep on coming back? How did they get arrested that many times and keep getting out? That closest.
I think that's exactly the right question, and I'll just repeat it, which is, I mentioned earlier that there were around 39 young people since 2020 that had been arrested more than 3 times. And for the most part, yeah, we are talking about carjackings, but it's other forms of violent crime as well. And the question was, why have they not been diverted, not just from the criminal justice system, but properly transitioned to doing something, more productive, a better outlet, safe recreational activities, and yes, getting assistance that they so desperately need. That is the work that is so important right now. And we, and by we I mean our office, is pulling together the right partners literally as we speak to make sure that people aren't dropping through the cracks. And one of the pieces that I think we all have to recognize is one is no magic wand fix, and 2, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. You have to approach each individual kid with the dignity, the respect, and the individuality that they deserve. We need to make sure that they are safe and our public is safe from some of these violent acts. And yes, we do need to make sure there is accountability in place. And where is necessary, yes, we need to take some pretty serious actions. Also, we recognize that we don't just want to have kids heading into the criminal justice system for the long haul. And so the work that you do, by the way, is greatly appreciated. It is no one-size-fits-all approach, but we're going to be working with everyone from parole officers to community organizations, everyone from park and recreation to our schools and our community. And I want to also thank 21 Days of Peace for being here, because they have been here for the long haul. And thank you, Reverend.
If you're going to do that, so I hear what you're saying, and I listen to the scanner all the time. It's background music in my house, and I hear how many calls come in, like 10 calls in 1 minute. We only have so many police officers on the north side and south side. How do you address these crimes? If these kids are repeat offenders, if they're recidivists, then they're taking up a lot of time so that we can't respond to domestics, we can't respond to people kicking the door in. So I'm just saying, the sooner the better, because we're not getting better over here.
I couldn't agree more. And if you talk to our inspectors back here, and certainly I invite anyone up that wants to speak to this, but I've heard directly from them, Staffing is an issue. They can't continue to do more with less. Not to mention, nobody can be their best version of self when you don't have the ability to recalibrate between calls, when you're simply running from 911 call to 911 call, and you can't do that proactive community outreach work that is so essential. Not to mention when you have so many violent acts that are happening, yes, it does become increasingly difficult. Now, notwithstanding all of that, the big point of what I'm telling you is arrests have been made. Arrests are being made. That is not the whole dynamic that we need to be looking at. It must be a comprehensive approach, and it must be multi-jurisdictional. So we're working, yes, with the city and our police, yes, also with the prosecutors and the Hennepin County Attorney, and yes, with the courts as well. We all need to be working together. We just came from a meeting, actually, on that exact topic, and we anticipate we're going to be having several more to make sure that these gaps are filled in. I'm going to go Reverend and then over here.
Thank you. Forgive me, Leo, I got another meeting, but let me say this. And thank you, Lynn. Some of the questions that we direct to the government, we got to start directing to us as people. Because if our kids continue to get arrested 3, 4, 5 times, we got to have some conversations with the families. What we're lacking between our groups is synergy. What we were able to create here during the summer with 21 Days of Peace was a synergistic move between the law enforcement and the community. Most of the reason why we was able to get the areas clean is because we knew them. So we can go to them, we can try to help them get jobs, get them to school, get other things, but we don't expand it because sometimes city officials play games. But then our community got to stand up. Our community got to say this behavior is not acceptable. And so everybody got to pull their boots on and start dealing with this. Families, if you're having problems with your child, you need to know the resources that you can go to, that you can get your kid help. You'll never have a proper prognosis without a right diagnosis. Yes. And the homelessness and the many of our kids that's running away from the way some of the mentality is and the trauma, we don't talk about it no more. We want to give it to law enforcement, and then we move our hand back like we don't have any responsibility. And I'm saying as a community, it ain't new being poor. Hell, we've been poor. But what is new is the level of treatment that we've done to each other, and we've made it acceptable. And we got to do it. And I'm saying to you, brothers and sisters, preachers, a whole nine, we've got to be saying to our community, we got to change, and we are the change agents that got to make it happen. We want partnership, and we need y'all to be real with us, those of us who put our life on the line. Because right now, 21 Days of Peace, all of our hours got to get cut because we don't have the resources because nobody's helping us. Be blessed.
Thank you.
Clap your hands for that, because that was real true. That was real.
See you tomorrow morning.
And I want to say thank you to Reverend McAfee, and I am Pastor Jalila. I work with all the women and girls in the city of Minneapolis and Hennepin County that have been shot, stabbed, and assaulted. I see them first at the bedside with a partnership with Next Step, the hospital. The CEO has allowed me to continue to go in and meet these young girls at bedside. I don't know if you know, but the last 3 years, we have had the most women and girls shot in the city of Minneapolis in history. My sister was one of them. So when I saw her get shot like that and she just got dropped with no help, me and my husband, we sold our house. And I took $65,000 of that money and started a violence prevention program for women and girls. Tonight here at Shiloh Temple, Bishop Howell has been so gracious to allow us to host these girls and these women here. We're dealing with it from a family dynamics perspective. I'm a mental health professional, and so we deal with trauma, right? So when you go through trauma, you're not thinking straight. So a lot of times that we're seeing a lot of the carjacking, do you not know that the girls are doing it now? So it was a lot of programs for young black boys and young black men, but they left the girls of color behind. So what did I end up with? A lot of Native American girls and African American girls knocking on the doors of the church and knocking on the doors of the hospitals and looking for me. So I said, well, let me help them get over the potholes of life that I had to walk through, walking over dead bodies, being hungry in the city of Minneapolis. So what did? We opened up a food shelf here. We're serving over 6,000 people a month. And we're using food as a violence prevention program. We have people wanting to shoot themselves, so the Hennepin County Sheriff's linked up with us here in Hennepin County, and we said, let's not arrest them, let's get them a gun bucket so they can drop guns in, and let's give them a way out. We have seen, because of that, the partnership, the violence decrease on West Broadway, right? And so whenever anybody gets shot, nobody has to tell me, I get it first, right? So instead of just being out there, I said we need programming for them, right? So that we can begin to build up resources so that you would know where to come as a young girl in this city. We haven't had any gender-based violence, any gender-based violence prevention program. We haven't had anybody thinking about these girls. So why do you think you got an uptick of now the girls that's committing these violence? And I know them because I got them. So tonight we'll have about 150 to 200 women and girls here that have been shot this year in this city. That is a lot of girls. A lot of the people that died, I watched them die. I watched over 50-some people die this year. That is trauma, right? So I said, how do we dig our community? Instead of complaining, let's be proactive and let's create programs. I focus strictly on young girls, young black girls, African American. So then we just got a law passed in this state for black women and girls. Why did it take that? Why did my sister have to get shot and nobody come to her rescue? And I grew up in the 3rd precinct. And I own property over there, right? And I'm in North Minneapolis, so you might as well say I'm all over this city. I know what I'm talking about. I've seen it firsthand. And if we don't begin to make some changes and become more with the police as partnership, I take a call every Thursday with the precinct, the Hennepin County Sheriff, the parole officers. We take them with the Office of Violence Prevention. Sasha Cotton, she's doing as much as she can. But now we need the police to back us, we need the mayor to back us, and we can't just be talking anymore. We need to actually show action so that we can get ahead of this violence that is coming this summer. Do you guys just know we got about 9 people shot over the weekend? So while everybody's chilling, my work don't stop. So we need to go another direction of being proactive versus reactive. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, Mayor, for being here, Chief, officers. I've been working with you since 1977. I've seen our youth programs grow. I've seen the basketball programs and the football programs and the summer park programs explode, and then I've seen them disappear. Our park programs are probably at an all-time low. Our churches, how many churches have full-time youth workers? Almost none. We need, and prevention is always better than trying to cure something that's already broken. If I put a screw in a door, it's a lot easier than trying to replace the door that got broken because the screw is missing. And when we invest in our children, like Cross is doing right now, and like some of the others are doing, that is where we're going to get the most bang for the buck. Youth workers don't make anywhere near the amount of money these gentlemen do on the stage, and ladies. But yet, they're out there because they love it and they want to make a change. I've had people knock on my door and say, Ron, you've changed my life. We need more people like that. We need more programs like Cross and what Bishop is doing. We need more youth workers on the street. And if we have that, a lot of this other stuff will disappear.
Thanks. I know there's a couple more questions. I promise I'll get to you right afterwards. I want to open it up to some media, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I have a question. I want to follow up on this lady's question. And you and Chief Huffman mentioned the 39 kids that had been arrested 3 times, the 29 or that Chief Huffman mentioned 5 or more times. It certainly suggests more than falling through the cracks. Something's not happening, and I'm not sure it's with the folks standing behind you. I mean, are these folks, are you getting the support down the line from the county attorney? And what is happening? Because that certainly suggests that it's not happening.
Thank you. That's a great question about the support for every part of the process to meaningfully intervene with those kids. And I think that The criminal justice system is working collectively, has been working over the past few years to really recalibrate, to be doing a better job at being community-based, to do a better job of diverting kids from involvement in the criminal justice system, to look at better ways to be equitable and to be just. And now we are at an inflection point where we need to be very diligent and very smart about looking not with a net, not casting a wide net, not painting with a broad brush, but using data to identify the kids who are at the highest risk because they are already down the pathway, well involved in violent crimes, and make sure that we're providing meaningful interventions to change the circumstances of their life, to protect themselves from their own decision making and to protect other folks in the community. And to do that, we need all the partners to come to the table to have that pragmatic conversation that Mayor Frey was mentioning. So we need to sit at the table with all of those partners. We need to look at the data, at the list of the offenders that we have in front of us, at each individual set of circumstances, and identify what those meaningful interventions are going to be.
If I could follow up though, are you getting support from the back end? It sounds like you all are doing the work, making these multiple arrests of these kids. It sounds like they're back out on the street in days. Is that happening, and why is it happening?
So I think that all of the folks, all of the players in every part of the criminal justice system want the same outcomes. We want a safer and more peaceful city. There is no agenda to not support the arrests that the Minneapolis Police Department is making. I think the common agenda is to get to a safer and more peaceful city. And now is the point where we need to have a smarter conversation about all the ways that we can do that.
This is Alex with KSTP. I'm just curious, we're talking about plans for addressing violent crime. Is there a plan, just to clarify, is there anything new or different that is happening as of these announcements today?
Yeah, we have a number of strategies that are being implemented right now, some of them throughout the precincts that you may or may not be aware of. I think one of the pieces that we are focusing on right now is making sure that the process is collective enough and it's not just focused on police, because as was mentioned, they are arresting people. They are doing their jobs to the extent they can with massive attrition to make sure that perpetrators are, yes, held accountable and that we have diversion where appropriate. And simultaneously, yeah, we also need to be making sure that other partners, including community, including the judicial branch, including Hennepin County, all of us are stepping up at the same time. We're not pointing fingers at anybody specifically right now, and I think that's a really important facet because these are complex situations. It wouldn't be fair to do so. But it is fair to say immediate answers, especially for our communities that are suffering like here on the north side. I do want to ask, because I know that there is a lot of work going on in a number of our precincts that are narrowly and uniquely tailored to the work that they are seeing in their respective communities. And I just want to see if any of our respective inspectors want to give a rundown of the work that they're seeing.
Hi, so I'm Katie Blackwell, and I'm the 5th Precinct Inspector in the southwest portion of the city. And so for us, what we've been doing is not only doubling and tripling up patrols, robbery suppression details, directed patrols in the area, but we're heavily relying upon the community. And we've asked for their help, and we've been to numerous community meetings, and they've come to the table to help us. We've also met with Really Courageous to educate the public and to work with our investigators so that we can get through these cases and charge them out and get people in custody. So thank you, and I just want the victims to know, as traumatic as it is, it wasn't your fault. It's not your fault. The other thing that we've been doing is collaborating with metro agencies, our neighboring borders, with Edina and St. Louis Park and many other metro areas. And I think the biggest point of note is that this isn't just a thing that we've been doing just recently, working on all these cases, these extra patrols, working through community. We've been doing it for several months. These cases are highly complex. They take time, and it's not just one law enforcement problem. It's not just prosecutors' problem, judges' problem, or community problem. They're happening everywhere, and they take time. And so investigators and specialty teams have been working extraordinary amount of hours, extraordinary. amount of hours on these cases. And they're doing their due diligence to make sure that they're getting charged out. And we've had several conversations with juvenile partners and with prosecutors and other entities, and we're all coming together collaboratively to make sure that we can follow through with these charges. But I do want to just one more time to thank the community for your help out there, being our eyes and ears, because we cannot be everywhere at once. And so to our civilian partners, like We Push for Peace and Mother's Love and these other entities that have helped us along the way, I just want to say thank you to you as well.
This is Susan with the Star Tribune. I wanted to ask, has there been any directive to MPD officers to focus investigative resources on homicides rather than other crimes, including other violent crimes? If so, why?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I heard part of it.
Yes. Has there been any directive to MPD officers to focus investigative resources on homicides rather than other crimes, including other violent crimes? And if so, why?
I mean, the directive is always to focus on the most violent and significant crimes first, especially when you have limited resources. You need to focus on crimes where there's potential for significant injury or loss of life. I think that's always a general rule in policing. To the extent there's been any further directive, no, that's not the case. Because I mean, these carjackings, let's be real, they are violent, they are dangerous. People are terrified by them, and they need to stop.
Hi, Mayor Karen Snellen with Fox 9 here. I've heard a couple of times now talking about the 21 Days of Peace and the effectiveness of this program that's been out there now for well more than 21 days. But it sounds like, and just speaking with Rev, that it's a couple hours here and a couple hours there. If it's effective, and it sounds like there's some data to support its effectiveness in reducing violence in the areas that they're at, is there any plan to expand that, to give them more money? Because it sounds like those are the constraints right now, is that they're financial constraints. But it sounds like if that's working and the MPD is a little bit short-staffed right now, or a lot short-staffed, any plans to expand that or work on that even more? 21
Days of Peace has been doing some incredible work for now, as you mentioned, far more than 21 days. I mean, at this point, we're going on over a year in some instances. And there has been money that has been received, and I think there's more money that needs to go down that pipe because clearly they've had effective results. Now, I'm not going to make a commitment here at a press conference for a specific amount of money. What I will tell you is that I'm meeting with them literally tomorrow morning around 7:30 to go through some of the logistics. And yeah, the results speak for themselves. And simultaneously, we have a number of groups that are doing some tremendous work throughout our city.
Got time for one more? Yeah. Hi, thanks so much. Carla with Care 11. And I was out in the community just yesterday specifically, and there was a comment by a resident that said the MPD and the city leadership overall is more responsive right now because it's hitting more the southwest area of the city. What would you want to say to that, recognizing that perception is reality, and that even if this is not steeped in stats or other data, that might be the feeling among some community residents?
First, you are right. Perception does become reality at a certain point, but let's be real, reality is also reality. And the reality is that the north side here has suffered the vast majority, or certainly plurality, of the gun violence throughout our city. And in fact, it's pretty close to 50%. Additionally, there's around 5 neighborhoods in our entire city that where beyond 90% of the gun violence has taken place. So 5 neighborhoods, around 90% of the gun violence, and many of them are right here on the north side. Now, I think it's no coincidence that I have been to this particular church perhaps more than my own synagogue over the last couple of years, and that is because we want to make sure that we are here in community on a constant basis doing everything we can to help where it's needed most. Undoubtedly, the north side, 4th precinct, south side, 3rd precinct, downtown 1st precinct, we have seen significant upticks there, but the numbers were already substantially high even before an epidemic of gun violence. Now, what we're seeing, as you mentioned, is upticks in other areas of the city as well, including the 5th precinct. You know, people all collectively need to open their eyes to these issues. The North Side has had their eyes open to them for a long time now, and so they're very familiar. And that familiarity is not comfortable. It's not comfortable for anyone, and we hear from mothers and fathers on a daily basis about the issues that they face, and I'll tell you, it is not fair.
Mayor?
So,
Mayor?
please.
If I may get a question.
Please, you absolutely may.
Submitted to your office.
Yes.
A blueprint, particularly tailored for this community. We talk about this community, we talk about recidivism. We're chasing a cat that we can't catch. We know that summer is coming, yet there's not a community center or nothing for the kids to do. So if we start with the young, getting them acclimated, what's lost is lost. We can't get back. We have a whole generation we've lost for various reasons. But if these kids have nothing to do over here, and I propose to the governor and to yourself a $750,000 community center. And I gave you the detailed design. It puts them to work, it gives them a skill, gives them pride in their community, and you let the kids run it with adult advice that they can't have a community center.
I couldn't agree more, sir. We have upstream causes and downstream work that needs to take place, but the important fact is that we're all in this river together. And one of the important facets that you have consistently brought up is that without good outlets for kids to participate in and safe places for them to go with, by the way, supervision, then we'll continuously go down some of these wrong routes. Community center, I think, is a vital asset. Our office, through this last budget, just invested an additional $2.6 million that will be ongoing on an annual basis for youth rec in parks. That is not enough money. We need more on top of that. And so we're going to be going to the state legislature with additional asks in the form of this multi-billion-dollar surplus that'll be coming down the pike so that we can push for expanded youth rec. And I'll tell you, North Minneapolis will absolutely be a priority. North Commons will be a priority. There are parks and rec centers throughout the city that need the additional refurbishing. And we also have a number of even sites that we've looked at to determine where best those outlets and activities can take place, and I know you've made an excellent proposal exactly on that front.
Thank you very much, everyone. That's all the time we have.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.